In the realms of myth and legend, the desire for power, knowledge, and the fulfillment of one's deepest desires has driven mortals to make unimaginable pacts. Welcome to Sinister Slumber. Join us on a journey as we delve into the darkest corners of folklore, exploring the most disturbing deals people are said to have made with demons. From Faustian bargains to sacrifices of loved ones, these tales serve as cautionary reminders of the price some are willing to pay for their heart's deepest desires.
Welcome to Deals with Demons, Unveiling the Darkest Bargains.
In the village of Eldenwood resided the relentless seeker of knowledge, Adrian Faustus. His days and nights were devoted to deciphering ancient tomes and cryptic manuscripts, an insatiable hunger driving his quest for hidden truths. One moonlit evening, Adrian chanced upon a weathered grimoire concealed within his collection. Its pages emitted an aura of forbidden knowledge, and as he chanted the incantations inscribed within, a cold wind swept through his study, extinguishing his candles. From the shadows emerged a figure, its presence ominous yet intriguing. Cloaked in darkness, the figure's eyes glowed like embers as it extended a proposition of profound gravity, a Faustian pact. Unlimited wisdom and pleasures beyond human comprehension, all in exchange for his soul. As if to affirm its power, the figure conjured a book radiating an otherworldly light. Adrian opened it, and his mind was flooded with arcane insights, forgotten languages, and truths that could reshape the very fabric of reality. Temptation coiled around him, urging him to embrace the forbidden. Desiring proof, Adrian dared to question the figure's integrity. A sinister smile curled upon its lips as it extended a fiery hand. In a moment of decision, Adrian reached out, and an inferno of knowledge surged through him. Yet, within the torrent of revelations, doubt and foreboding lingered. As time passed, Adrian's quest for knowledge gradually transformed into an insatiable lust for power. He mended the broken, forged impossible marvels, and reveled in the indulgences he had once only dreamt of. But despite his accomplishments, an emptiness gnawed at his core, exacerbated by the looming specter of the Pact's conclusion. On the fateful day of reckoning, Adrian found himself alone in his study, the figure materializing once more. Its eyes blazed with intensity as it declared his time had come. Reminiscing on a life of indulgence and sacrifices, Adrian stood before the figure, the weight of his decision heavy upon him. A chill permeated the room as an ancient silence enveloped him. With an eerie voice, the figure laid claim to his soul, a solemn reminder that his downfall was not solely in the pact itself, but in his inability to recognize the greatness within himself. Thus, Adrian Faustus's tale wove itself into a whispered legend, a scholar who, in his pursuit of the stars, found himself eternally bound to the shadows. In the dimly lit confines of an old, decaying mansion, a sense of foreboding hung heavy in the air. The whispers of forgotten spirits seemed to echo through its hallways, and shadows danced ominously on the walls. In this unsettling place lived a man named Samuel, driven by a desperation that clouded his judgment. Haunted by mounting debts and dreams that seemed forever out of reach, Samuel found himself drawn to an ancient tome he discovered within the mansion's library. Its pages were filled with intricate symbols and incantations that promised unimaginable power and wealth. It spoke of blood pacts, contracts signed in one's own blood, binding the soul to a demon in exchange for worldly desires. As the moon cast an eerie glow through the mansion's windows, Samuel found himself alone in a candlelit room, the weight of his desperation pressing upon him. With a trembling hand, he cut his palm, letting his life force mingle with the ink that lined the pages. His signature appeared as if etched by an invisible hand, and as he pressed his palm onto the parchment, an otherworldly wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles. A chill ran down Samuel's spine as a figure materialized before him. Its eyes gleamed with malevolent intent, and a grin twisted its unnaturally elongated features. This was the demon to whom Samuel had pledged his allegiance, trading his soul for the fulfillment of his most fervent desires. In the days that followed, Samuel's life transformed in ways he could scarcely believe. His debts were miraculously paid, and his bank account swelled with wealth that appeared out of thin air. Yet, with each passing success, a gnawing emptiness consumed him. His once joyful demeanor gave way to a cold, calculating ambition, and his relationships crumbled under the weight of his newfound greed. As Samuel's transformation intensified, so did the sinister occurrences within the mansion. Whispers grew louder, and unsettling apparitions haunted his every step. He became plagued by nightmarish visions that seemed to tear at the fabric of his sanity. One fateful evening, as he sat alone in his opulent study, the demon materialized once more. Its voice was a twisted melody that sent shivers down Samuel's spine. "You have received all you desired, mortal," it hissed, "but now, it is time to deliver what you promised." Samuel's heart raced as the demon presented a contract, now pulsating with an otherworldly energy. His own signature appeared blood red, the ink seemingly alive. The pact demanded a terrible price, an innocent soul, to be claimed by the demon in Samuel's stead. Desperation mingled with terror as Samuel realized the true nature of the contract he had signed. His quest for power had led him down a dark and treacherous path, one that threatened to consume not only his own soul but the soul of an innocent. As the mansion's walls seemed to close in around him, Samuel raced against time to break the curse he had unleashed. His journey led him through realms both ethereal and horrifying as he sought to outwit the demon and sever the blood pact that bound him. In the end, it was a sacrifice of redemption that offered a glimmer of hope. With the weight of his actions heavy upon him, Samuel confronted the demon in a final, desperate confrontation. In a blaze of light and darkness, the mansion trembled, and the pact was shattered, releasing its malevolent grip on Samuel's soul. But the mansion stood forever changed, its halls forever haunted by the echoes of the past. The tale of Samuel's blood pact became a chilling legend, a reminder of the dangers of seeking power at the cost of one's humanity and the unforeseen consequences that can arise from making deals with forces beyond mortal comprehension. In the remote village of Blackbrook, nestled deep within a dense forest, an air of unease hung like a shroud. Legends whispered of a malevolent entity known only as the Harbinger, said to demand sinister bargains that led to unending suffering. The villagers spoke of a grim deal, the sacrifice of an innocent newborn in exchange for great power. Amidst this darkness lived a man named Caleb. Desperate for power and wealth beyond his humble existence, he dared to venture into the forest one moonless night, clutching a bundle wrapped in cloth, his own newborn son, Matthew. Navigating through the gnarled trees, Caleb's footsteps faltered as he felt an otherworldly presence. A chilling wind picked up, carrying whispers that danced on the edge of his hearing. Eyes wide with trepidation, he stumbled upon a clearing bathed in an eerie blue light. In the center stood a shadowy figure, the Harbinger. Its eyes glowed like coals, and its voice reverberated through the air, chilling Caleb to his core. "You seek power, mortal?" the entity hissed, its voice a symphony of malevolence. "I offer you mastery over worlds, kingdoms at your feet, in exchange for the purity of an innocent soul." Caleb's heart raced, torn between his desires and the primal instinct to protect his child. In a moment of weakness, he surrendered the swaddled infant to the Harbinger's waiting grasp. As the entity's claws closed around Matthew, Caleb's heart shattered. The forest seemed to hold its breath as a wail of pure agony pierced the night. Shadows converged around the Harbinger and its captive, distorting reality into a nightmare. Tears streamed down Caleb's face as he watched his son's innocence being devoured by darkness. The forest echoed with anguished cries as the newborn's life force was drained, leaving behind only an empty husk. When the night finally released its grip, the clearing was bathed in a sickly, crimson light. Caleb's hands were stained with blood, both metaphorically and literally. His desire for power had cost him the most precious thing in his life. The Harbinger turned its gaze toward Caleb, its eyes now empty voids. "You have paid the price, mortal." the power you seek is yours." With those words, Caleb felt an unnatural surge of energy coursing through his veins. But as he looked around, he realized the forest had changed. The trees were twisted, gnarled, and distorted, mirroring the torment within his heart. Days turned into nights, and Caleb's newfound power brought only destruction. His touch withered crops, turned water to poison, and even the air seemed to cower from his presence. The villagers, once his friends, now lived in fear of the very man who had once been one of their own. Haunted by his actions, Caleb's nights were tormented by visions of his son's cries, each one accusing him of his unforgivable deed. The forest, once a haven of shadows, now whispered tales of his monstrosity. One fateful night, as the moon shrouded the forest in an eerie glow, Caleb's strength waned. Shadows converged around him, suffocating his very soul. And then, a vision appeared before him, the empty eyes of his son, accusing and pitiful. As if in a trance, Caleb stumbled back to the clearing where he had made his accursed pact. The harbinger awaited him, its gaze cold and indifferent. "Your power has brought nothing but ruin," it intoned, its voice devoid of emotion. Caleb's voice trembled as he begged for mercy, for a way to undo his sins. But mercy was not within the entity's nature. The harbinger extended a hand, and with a gesture, darkness consumed Caleb, his body and soul becoming one with the malevolence that had birthed his horrors. And so, the village of Blackbrook bore witness to its own darkness, the tale of a man who traded his own flesh and blood for power, only to find that his true fate was far more horrifying than he could ever have imagined. In the forgotten alleyways of a decrepit city, a shadowy figure named Victor walked a path of despair. Tormented by twisted desires that gnawed at his sanity, he sought out the forbidden, dark desires that whispered to him in the darkest hours of the night. Whispers that led him to the door of an enigmatic establishment known only as the Obsidian Parlor. Behind the parlor's unassuming facade lay a realm of dark magic, a haven for those willing to pay any price to see their darkest fantasies realized. The proprietor, a wizened figure named Seraphine, studied Victor with eyes that seemed to pierce into his very soul. "Welcome, seeker of forbidden truths," Seraphine's voice echoed through the dimly lit chamber. "Speak your desire, and it shall be fulfilled." Victor hesitated, the weight of his desires heavy upon him. Finally, he whispered his macabre wish, an insatiable thirst for the suffering of others, a desire to witness the most agonizing deaths imaginable. A chill settled over the room as Seraphine's lips curled into a smile that sent shivers down Victor's spine. A pact was struck, sealed in darkness, and with that, Victor's descent into madness began. Days turned into nights as Victor's life spiraled into a horrifying whirlwind. The sights he had once found abhorrent now fueled his twisted fascination. Faces contorted in agony, screams that echoed through his nightmares, the realm of horror he had once imagined was now his reality. As Victor reveled in his dark desires, the city around him shifted. Shadows seemed to stretch and writhe, the air itself tainted with malevolence. The city's once vibrant heart now pulsed with an undercurrent of despair, as life was drained from the very streets he tread. But as the death toll rose and the macabre became commonplace, Victor's mind began to crack. Haunting whispers plagued his every step, accusing him of his monstrous acts. Faces of those he had condemned to death tormented his dreams, their bloodied hands reaching out for justice. One night, Victor found himself in a desolate alley, surrounded by a chorus of phantom voices. Suddenly, the shadows twisted, coalescing into grotesque forms, the very embodiments of his darkest desires. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the ground seemed to writhe beneath his feet. Faces twisted in agony, each a victim of his morbid yearnings, emerged from the darkness. Their eyes glowed with a searing intensity, and their voices merged into a cacophony of suffering. "You wanted to see us suffer, Victor," they hissed, their voices a chorus of torment. "Now, you shall share in our pain." Victor's heart raced as the figures closed in, their fingers like daggers, tearing at his flesh. Pain seared through his body, each torment a reflection of the horrors he had conjured. He screamed, the echoes mingling with the cries of those he had condemned. As his mind fractured under the weight of his sins, Victor's world dissolved into a nightmarish tableau. He saw the city collapse into chaos, consumed by the very darkness he had unleashed. His own sanity crumbled as the line between reality and nightmare blurred. And in the end, as the last vestiges of Victor's mind were consumed, his story became a chilling testament to the destructive power of indulging in the darkest desires. The city, once alive, now stood as a twisted monument to his insatiable thirst for suffering, a realm where nightmares reigned and the echoes of his sins haunted every corner. In the desolate village of Ashen Hollow, an air of unease clung to every shadow, every rustling leaf. Among its inhabitants was a man named Tobias, driven by an insatiable thirst for power that eclipsed reason. The whispers that slithered through his mind led him to a decrepit mansion at the edge of the woods, a place rumored to house a gateway to the supernatural. Tobias ventured into the mansion, its walls oozing with dread and malevolence. As he descended into the bowels of the mansion, he stumbled upon an ancient book, its pages filled with cryptic symbols. The book spoke of a demon who could grant unimaginable power in exchange for a soul. With trepidation, Tobias performed the ritual inscribed within the pages, and a darkness congealed before him. Eyes that glowed with infernal fire stared into his very soul. The demon's voice reverberated through the chamber, chilling Tobias to his core. "Your desires are known to me, mortal," the demon hissed, its voice a symphony of torment. "In exchange for the power you seek, I shall condemn you to unending pain, both physical and psychological." Tobias's heart raced, the weight of his desires paling in comparison to the eerie power emanating from the demon. Driven by a thirst that eclipsed his fear, he agreed to the malevolent pact. With the pact sealed, Tobias felt an immediate surge of power coursing through his veins. He commanded elements, defied gravity, and bent reality to his will. Yet, as his power grew, so did the shadows that clung to his soul. Whispers danced on the edge of his perception, and the world around him seemed to warp and contort. Days turned into nights, and Tobias's transformation was complete. His power was matched only by his agony, both physical and psychological. His body racked with ceaseless pain, and the whispers in his mind swelled into a cacophony that threatened to shatter his sanity. He was no longer in control. The power he had sought had become a prison, each spell, each command, a cruel reminder of the price he had paid. The villagers grew wary, whispers of a malevolent presence spreading through Ashen Hollow. Tobias's descent into madness escalated, and the mansion itself seemed to respond to his torment. The walls groaned, the floors trembled, and eerie apparitions haunted his every step. His very touch turned the soil to ash, and the trees around the mansion twisted into grotesque forms. One moonless night, as the mansion's shadows stretched and merged, Tobias was confronted by the demon once more. Its eyes glowed with unholy glee as it spoke, its words dripping with malevolence. "Your power has brought you suffering beyond measure, mortal," the demon's voice echoed. "And yet, your agony is but a taste of eternity." As the demon's laughter filled the chamber, Tobias's mind fragmented further. He was trapped in a cycle of unending pain, his body and soul condemned to a torment that knew no end. And so, the village of Ashen Hollow bore witness to a chilling tale, a man who sought power at the cost of his very being, only to find himself ensnared in a web of agony and despair. The mansion, now a monument to his suffering, stood as a grim reminder that the pursuit of power can lead to a fate far more horrifying than one could ever imagine. In the forgotten hamlet of Greyhaven, where fog perpetually clung to the air and trees whispered ancient secrets, lived a man named Adrian. Obsessed with the allure of dominion over the unknown, he ventured deep into the heart of his darkest desires, into the very abyss that whispered his name. One moonless night, Adrian stumbled upon a decrepit crypt concealed within the graveyard's tangled undergrowth. Inside lay a tome, its leather-bound cover oozing malevolence, a gateway to a world untouched by sanity. The words on its pages were written in crimson, the color of 1,000 forgotten sins. Within the pages, a ritual was detailed, an unholy pact that pledged Victor unimaginable supremacy in return for a sacrifice of pure darkness. His heart raced as the candlelight cast eerie shadows, conjuring the figure of a demon, its eyes aflame with eternal torment. The demon's voice slithered like serpents through Adrian's mind, weaving a chilling tapestry of promises. To harness the forbidden, you must perform the ritual, an act of consuming the essence of one held dear. An abyss of dread yawned before Adrian as the demon's words echoed through his mind. He trembled, the weight of his decision tugging at his conscience, but the allure of omnipotence drowned out the feeble cries of morality. In the dead of night, Adrian returned to his dwelling. His sister, Lillian, an embodiment of innocence, slumbered soundly, her existence untainted by the horrors that awaited her. Moonlight streamed through the window, casting an otherworldly pallor upon her peaceful form. With a dagger in hand and a heart heavy as the void, Adrian approached Lillian. Each footstep echoed like the tolling of a funeral bell, a requiem for the sanity he was about to forsake. The air was thick with impending doom, as if the very cosmos recoiled from his actions. As he raised the dagger, Lillian's eyes fluttered open, a silent plea for salvation in their depths. Adrian's hands shook, his heart torn between abhorrence and ambition. The blade descended, severing the bonds of innocence, releasing a mournful wail that echoed through the void. Blood-stained hands clutched at a world undone, the bond of siblinghood forever shattered. The very fabric of existence seemed to ripple with anguish, as if nature itself mourned the atrocity that had been committed. The ritual's power surged through Adrian's veins, searing his soul with an unholy fire. Power, once a distant dream, became his dominion, but as he gazed upon Lillian's lifeless form, his victory tasted like ashes. Her empty eyes stared into eternity, their hollow gaze accusing him of his monstrous transgression. Time turned stagnant as the village of Greyhaven fell into darkness. Fog clung to every corner, trees twisted into nightmarish shapes, and the air echoed with Lillian's plaintive whispers. Every breath was a reminder of the abyss that now consumed Adrian's existence, a vortex of power and agony. Days turned into nights, and the very heart of Greyhaven seemed to wither beneath Adrian's grasp. The wind carried a mournful dirge, the shadows bore witness to a soul condemned, and the demon's laughter haunted Adrian's every step, a sinister lullaby in his restless dreams. As the village succumbed to eternal twilight, the tale of Adrian and Lillian became a chilling parable, a cautionary whisper that resonated through the ages. The echoes of a demon's steel resonated, a symphony of dread, a tale of power paid with the blood of the innocent and a life devoured by the void.